Tonight is not about superstition, it is about alignment. For centuries, Friday the 13th has been labeled unlucky, whispered about in fear, wrapped in stories of curses and misfortune. But what if that fear was intentional? What if the number 13 was never a symbol of bad luck, but a marker, a signal, a door disguised as a warning? Most people will wake up tomorrow exactly the same as they are today. Same thoughts, same habits, same silent compromises. They will blame the date if something goes wrong. They will laugh if nothing happens. And they will never realize that something did happen, quietly, invisibly, structurally. Because Friday the 13th is not an event. It is a calibration point. There are nights when reality becomes thin, when patterns loosen and identity becomes slightly unstable. Most people feel it as anxiety, irritation, restlessness. They scroll more, they distract more, they argue more, they make small reactive choices that seem harmless. But those small choices are not random. They are tests. And tonight, the test is simple. Will you react? Or will you override? The unlucky number was never meant to curse you. It was meant to expose you, and most will fail without ever knowing they were being measured. The hidden meaning of 13. The fear of 13 did not begin as superstition. It began as suppression. Long before skyscrapers skipped the 13th floor and airlines avoided the 13th row, the number carried a different meaning entirely. In ancient systems of knowledge, 12 represented completion, the closed cycle. 12 months, 12 zodiac signs, 12 hours of day, 12 of night. 12 was structure, stability, order. 13 was what came after order. 13 was disruption. It symbolized the point where the completed system could no longer contain growth. The moment when something had to either evolve or fracture. That is why it became feared, because disruption is uncomfortable, and those who benefit from stability rarely celebrate what breaks it. Friday intensifies this symbolism. Traditionally associated with Venus, the force of desire, attraction, values, Friday governs what you love, what you crave, what you prioritize. When the energy of disruption, 13, merges with the energy of desire, Friday, something subtle occurs. Your attachments are tested, not dramatically, not with lightning strikes or obvious omens, but through small, ordinary decisions. You wake up slightly irritated. Do you snap at someone or pause? You feel the urge to procrastinate. Do you delay or act? You encounter temptation. Do you default or choose differently? Each reaction reinforces identity, and identity shapes trajectory. This is the part most people never see. Friday the 13th does not bring bad luck. It amplifies your baseline. If your habits are unconscious, the amplification deepens unconsciousness. If your patterns are reactive, reactivity multiplies. It is not a curse. It is a magnifier. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that does not reflect your face, but your tendencies, your avoidance, your discipline, your integrity, your self-sabotage. Tonight, that mirror sharpens. And here is the twist. The test is not about being perfect. It is about being aware. The system does not measure outcomes. It measures overrides. Every time you interrupt a negative impulse, something subtle recalibrates. Every time you choose the higher response instead of the familiar one, you step into the frequency of 13, the frequency beyond completion. But most people won't, because disruption feels like danger. When 13 energy activates, it creates friction. Plans stall, people cancel, technology glitches, emotions rise unexpectedly. It feels like resistance from the outside, but it is actually instability from within. Old patterns fight to survive, and survival is powerful. Your mind will rationalize regression. Not today. I'll start tomorrow. It's not that serious. But this is precisely when the architecture shifts. Friday the 13th acts like a stress test on your identity structure. The parts of you built on fear feel pressure. The parts built on intention feel opportunity. You may notice strange coincidences today, delays, chance conversations, sudden realizations. These are not mystical punishments. They are prompts, interruptions designed to see how you respond. The unlucky narrative was created to distract from responsibility. If something goes wrong, you blame the date. If something feels heavy, you blame the superstition. But what if nothing external is happening at all? What if the entire experience is internal calibration? Here is what most will miss. The test is not about what happens to you. It is about what you reinforce when it happens. If you gossip when irritated, you reinforce fragmentation. If you numb out when uncomfortable, you reinforce avoidance. If you delay action when inspired, you reinforce stagnation. Each reinforcement solidifies a trajectory. Friday the 13th simply accelerates the setting process. Think of it like wet cement. On ordinary days, your choices leave impressions that take time to harden. On this day, the cement dries faster. That is why people report bad luck. They are experiencing accelerated consequences of unconscious behavior. But the inverse is also true. Conscious overrides accelerate progress. Small, disciplined actions echo louder. Small, courageous decisions ripple farther. Small acts of restraint generate disproportionate clarity. You may feel like nothing dramatic is happening tonight, but internally, a scale is tipping. And here is the deeper twist. The test ends at midnight, but the trajectory continues for months. Most people will go to sleep unaware that they've confirmed their existing pattern. They will wake up tomorrow thinking nothing changed, yet something did. The direction locked in. Because 13 is not unlucky. It is the threshold number, and thresholds do not care about belief. They respond to choice. You are not being watched by a curse. You are being measured by your own consistency, and the night is not over yet. Why most will fail and never know it. Midnight does not announce itself with thunder. There is no visible portal, no crack in the sky, no dramatic shift in the air. And that is exactly why most people fail. Because the real test of Friday the 13th is invisible. The final hours of this day feel ordinary, maybe even anticlimactic. You might expect something dramatic, a sign, a surge, a confirmation that this was meaningful. Instead, what you feel is subtle fatigue, a quiet pull back toward normal. That pull is the seal forming. Earlier, the day created friction, small disturbances, emotional spikes, moments of choice. You felt them. You recognized some of them. Maybe you overrode one or two. But as midnight approaches, something else begins to happen. Your nervous system wants comfort. It wants familiarity. It wants the safety of the known pattern. And this is where the majority collapse, not into chaos, but into autopilot. They scroll instead of reflect. They justify instead of adjust. They numb instead of integrate. The test was never about dramatic transformation. It was about micro-loyalties. Who do you remain loyal to when no one is watching? The old identity or the emerging one? Here is the hidden architecture behind the failure. Friday activates desire. 13 activates disruption. When desire is disrupted, people panic. Not consciously, but energetically. They reach for what stabilizes them fastest, even if it's the very pattern that limits them. Comfort food, old arguments, late-night avoidance, impulse decisions, self-doubt disguised as realism. Each small regression whispers the same message to reality. I am not ready to evolve. And reality listens. This is not mystical punishment. It is structural alignment. Your external life must stabilize around the identity you consistently reinforce. If you reinforce hesitation, life slows. If you reinforce avoidance, opportunities thin. If you reinforce courage, pathways widen. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that they never realize they were inside a test. They will blame the next few months on market conditions, bad timing, unlucky breaks, difficult people. But what actually happened was subtler. The threshold passed, and they chose continuity over disruption. You may be wondering, if this is so subtle, how do I know if I passed? You don't look for fireworks. You look for friction you faced directly. Did you have a moment today where you could have defaulted and didn't? Did you interrupt an impulse? Did you choose discipline when it was inconvenient? Did you refuse to react emotionally when it would have been easy? Those were the doors. Every override weakened the gravitational pull of your old trajectory. Every conscious decision created structural instability in your limitation. But here's the final twist, the one almost no one understands. Friday the 13th is not a single-day test. It is a pattern reveal. It exposes your dominant operating system. Whatever you defaulted to today under mild energetic pressure is exactly what you default to under real pressure. That is the measurement. The number 13 symbolizes the step beyond completion. But to step beyond completion, something must end. Most people don't fail because they lack strength. They fail because they refuse to let an identity die. The identity that procrastinates. The identity that overthinks. The identity that waits for validation. The identity that blames circumstances. The identity that says, "Not yet." That identity feels safe. But safety is often disguised stagnation, and stagnation feels stable until it calcifies. As midnight arrives, something quiet locks into place. If you reinforced your old self, the lock strengthens it. If you disrupted your pattern, the lock stabilizes the new direction. No lightning, no applause, no warning label, just alignment. You might wake up tomorrow feeling normal, but watch carefully. Conversations will shift slightly. Opportunities will appear or not. Motivation will feel heavier or lighter. The echo of tonight begins shaping your next quarter of life. That is the part superstition hides. People fear 13 because they sense something unstable about it. And they are right. It is unstable. But instability is not misfortune. It is opportunity before it becomes form. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people crave change, but resist destabilization. Yet destabilization is the doorway to every breakthrough. Friday the 13th confronts you with that paradox. Do you want growth enough to tolerate temporary discomfort? Or do you want comfort enough to sacrifice growth? There is no external judge, only structural response. If you feel slightly different right now, more aware, more deliberate, then you have already shifted something. If you feel defensive, dismissive, or eager to move on quickly, that is information too. The test does not punish disbelief. It measures consistency. And the final realization is this. The unlucky narrative was designed to keep people passive. Because if you believe a day controls you, you never question how often you surrender control yourself. 13 was never unlucky. It was initiatory, a threshold number, a pressure point in the calendar, a subtle annual audit of identity. Most will laugh about it tomorrow. Most will say nothing happened. And for them, nothing will. But for those who understood the friction, who felt the instability and chose consciously, the next phase has already begun, not because of magic, but because of alignment. Friday the 13th was the question. Your behavior was the answer, and reality has already recorded it.